Man, we are pumped you're here. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Mike. I have the wonderful honor of being the lead pastor here at Bloom. And I'm so incredibly excited that you are here. We hope you feel welcome, loved, and at home. We're in the middle of a series called Cupid Needs More Ammo. So we don't normally just sing love songs out of nowhere. Maybe we should, but during this series, you might get a few of those hits that just stir your hearts. Amen. All right. But we're in a series called Cupid Needs More Ammo because we're basically saying, guess what? Butterflies and emotions are not enough to build a healthy marriage. And so we're really tackling a lot of that topics over the next several weeks. But I do have one announcement before we dive into the message, and this is this. We are about a month away from the launch of Bloom Church Forsyth. Come on, somebody. How exciting is that, man? They have been meeting every Saturday, doing launch meetings. It's awesome. If you can tell, we need some space. So, hey, if you live in that area, it is going to be an awesome community out there. I am so excited. They set up the chairs and the pipe and drape and the stage last week, and it is looking amazing. And you may be saying, well, I'm kind of interested in it, but did I miss the boat? Did I miss the chance to get a part of the launch team? No, you can get in at any time. We'll acclimate you, man. Join them every single Saturday, 9 a.m., Boys and Girls Club in Forsyth. Man, I'm excited about launching that. All right, guys, let's dive into the message. Cupid needs more ammo. We're talking about 5 foundational things you need to build a healthy marriage. Last week, Pastor Mac jumped in with seeking God and talked about how that has to be a foundational. And you heard that? And here's what a lot of people do, right? They hear that, they go, that's cliche, right? Seeking God. Of course, you're going to tell me to do that in church. That's what you're supposed to do. Hey, guess what? I'm okay being cliche if I'm healthy. Come on, somebody, right? Come on. Sometimes, man, we overcomplicate this thing. Of course, God has to be foundational. And today, we're going to talk about fighting fair. I didn't mean not fighting. I mean fighting fair. Because guess what? We all going to fight. Everybody is going to fight. And this is going to be a message that's not just going to help you in your marriages. It's going to help you in your workplace, with your friends, with your family, because you need to learn how to fight fair. Why are we going to all fight? Because nobody's perfect. There's nobody perfect in the world. Now, some of y'all heard me just say that, and you go, you don't know my spouse. They think they perfect. No, we ain't going there. Come on. Come on, nobody's perfect, and we've got to understand we are going to have disagreements. We're going to need to communicate healthy. But to jump this off, I'm going to jump into some meme game real quick and kind of gear us into what this looks like, what fighting looks like. When she starts an argument and you know you are right, but somehow, somewhere along the argument, she ended up convincing you that you were wrong and need to apologize for things you didn't even know you were going on. What? Well, that's right? I thought where did we end up here, right? All right, next one. When your husband hears you talking about shopping and spending money. That happens on a regular basis. I just peek my head in the room. Well, say what, right? Next one, come on. Ways to tell a woman's mad at you. She's silent, she's yelling, she acts the same, she acts different, she murdered you. I don't know. We good right now? I can't tell. We talk different. We communicate differently. I don't get it, right? Next one. When you thought you were done arguing with your man, but then you hear him mumble something under his breath, you said what? Say it to my face. Say it to my face. We ain't that dumb. All right, come on, move on. Next one. Women be like, I love how warm your body is. Come on. This is a nightly occasion for me. Them feet are cold. Preach. I get the cocoon. I just block her out, right? I just wrap around in a cocoon. All right, next one. My face when my husband takes out the garbage but doesn't put in a new liner. Come on, somebody. We help. We gonna meet in the middle, right? I do one, you do. All right, next one. Why to never try to load the dishwasher together? It don't go there. Why are you washing the dishes first? It's called a dishwasher. I don't get it, right? Why never do that? Lastly, during labor, the pain is so great that a woman can almost imagine what a man feels when he has a fever. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? We need a little bit more sympathy on our sides. These sniffles, they could be influenza. We don't know. It's just we need your love. All right. We got to fight fair. We got to go in this and handle this thing the right way. We cannot fight dirty. We have to fight healthy, right? And here's what I love. Proverbs says it like this. A fool finds no pleasure in understanding, but delights in airing his own opinions. Doesn't that sound like a lot of people in marriage, right? A lot of people be acting a fool in their marriage because they don't really care what you got going on. They just want you to know what they want to say. They just want to get their opinion out. They want you to come to their side. They're not going to meet in the middle or come to your side. And so we act a fool a lot of times in our marriage because we're not fighting with the right heart in mind. And here's what you've got to understand. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Healthy couples fight for resolution. Unhealthy couples fight for victory. Healthy couples fight for resolution. Healthy couples understand there's this tension in their relationship, and they want to remove that so joy and peace can take its place. Unhealthy couples go, I want you to agree with me. I want to win this fight. My pride will not subside until you agree with my side. And too many times, that's the way we fight. There's a marriage specialist who studied fighting for over 20 years named Dr. John Gottman. And he said that he can tell within 5 minutes of watching a couple fight with a 91% accuracy over his 21 years, whether that couple will survive or end in divorce. It's not that they don't fight, it's how they fight. And so you've got to really grasp this because you are going to have moments when there's disagreements. You're going to have moments when you don't always see eye to eye. And if you can't communicate healthy, you're going to set yourself up for failure. And so what we're going to talk about is some areas that you can learn how to fight fair. And we're going to kind of park in James chapter 1 and really break down what he says in verse 19 when he says it like this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, for a man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. And what he is saying here is there's 3 things you've got to learn how to fight fair with. And there's a question that always goes through our mind. How do we fight fair? So how do you fight fair? Because we know we're going to fight. We know there's going to be this disagreement. But how do you do it in a healthy way? And we want to talk about that today. And the very first thing that James says is this. Write this in your notes. You have to stop and what? Listen. He says you've got to be quick to listen. How many people know that's not normally the case, right? We quick to speak. We quick to air our opinion. We quick to throw in that low blow or that jab. We are really slow to listen. We are quick at saying what we want to say. We never are quick at hearing what they want us to hear. Have you ever heard that statement? You got 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Listen twice as much as you speak. That's a real reality in the way we are supposed to communicate. And there's some steps you need to learn on how to listen healthy. There's some ways to do this that's going to help you in a healthy way. And the very first one is this. Write this down. Repeat back to your spouse what they just said. Now, some of you just heard that and you go, oh, no. He getting all counselor on me, right? All formal. Now, what you said was, right? And some of y'all right now are just rolling your eyes. Repeat back. What's that got to do with anything? That doesn't sound right. That sounds cliche. Listen to me. When you repeat back what was said to you, what you're doing is actually hearing what they said. Because how many times do you know when you're in a conversation with someone, especially an argument, you're not hearing what they're saying, you're thinking in your mind what your rebuttal's gonna be. You will get triggered by something they say, and what do? You go, oh yeah? You hit me with that? I'm gonna hit you with a counter like that, whop. I'm gonna come around like a waka-waka, and I'm gonna get you laid out, and you are going to succumb to my argument because I'm skilled at it. I'm a professional arguer. So we're not listening to our spouse, we're listening to the voices in our head, right? But when you can repeat back what they said, what you're doing is you're pausing the voice in your head and thinking what they said. Not only are you doing that, but then your spouse understands you heard them. And what is the quickest way to remove emotion and de-escalate a temper? They hear you. Why do you think people raise their voice? Why do you think they yell? Because they don't think you hear them. So they're raising their voice to get you to hear them. So if you can stop for a second and repeat what they're saying, they understand you heard them. And the temper subsides. So that's the first step. The second step is you have to validate each other's feelings. Not only do you act and acknowledge that you hear them, but you say, I understand because of this, you feel this way. I understand because I said this or I did this, it made you feel this way. And this is what you have to understand. You got to get this really deep. You don't have to agree with them, and you can still validate them. What do you mean, Pastor Mike? You mean I don't have to agree with them and I still can validate them? It means that you could have been innocent or pure with your intentions and it still could hurt their feelings. You may have said something or done something not meaning to do any harm or not causing any damage or not meaning to be a certain way, yet it still can hurt their feelings. And what do we do a lot of times when somebody tells us they hurt our feelings and we feel like we did nothing wrong? We go, oh, really? You're just being sensitive. Come on. You know I didn't mean that. And guess what they do? They clam up and they get more aggravated. Here's what you've got to understand. When someone reacts to something you said, it's because you hit a place of vulnerability. And you hit a place of vulnerability because somewhere in their life or their past, that is a pain moment. There was something that happened that caused that to be a tender place in their life, and they're vulnerable there. And when you said or did what you did, you're pressing on that vulnerable moment and causing something to stir within their hearts. And here's the thing you need to understand. The way your spouse may have a vulnerable moment that you don't have, you've got vulnerable moments in your life that they don't have. And unless you learn to validate each other's feelings, you will always press those buttons in their hearts and cause pain to stir in their minds. So maybe you did it out of pure intentions, but it is stirring something up that causes flashbacks of pain in their heart and mind. And so when you validate their feelings, not only are you telling them, I hear you and I notice you, but you're also triggering your mind. In the future, I got to go about this differently. In the future, I got to communicate a little bit differently. In the future, I've got to react in a different way. And you've got to get this. Listen to me very clearly. People want to be heard. They don't want to be fixed. Especially for us dudes. Your wife doesn't always want you to fix her. She just wants you to hear her. I don't know about you guys, but my wife is actually really smart. She's actually got a lot going on. She actually knows a lot. She actually knows what she should do. She don't need me to always tell her what she should do. She just needs to know that I'm there for her and that I hear her. And she already knows where she needs to go. She just wants to know she don't have to go there alone. And sometimes we are so quick to speak and not quick to listen. You got to learn the art of that. All right, go back to James. What do you say? Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The second thing you've got to do, write this in your notes, is you got to guard your words. You got a really mischievous little thing about you, and it's called your tongue. And it likes to get you in trouble. It likes to spout things off, and you're like, hey, I wish I could get it back, right? Because all of a sudden you realize you in trouble. You ever heard that statement? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt me, right? That's a big fat lie. How many people know that, right? I'd rather you chuck a rock at my head than say something mean, right? Like that thing will heal. My heart doesn't, right? It hurts. Because guess what? Words stick. Words stick. And you may forgive, but it's hard to forget. It's hard to forget what was said about you. And sometimes people will say things and they don't mean it, but that don't mean it's not real and you don't receive it. And you've got to be careful on what you say and guard your words. Watch what Proverbs says. Watch your tongue, keep your mouth shut, and you'll stay out of trouble. Come on. That needs to be tattooed on our foreheads every morning when we look in the mirror. Keep your mouth shut, and you're not going to be in trouble. Because how many people know some of our biggest problems happen because we don't know how to zip it. And we speak without thinking. So I want you to ask yourself a few things. I want you to ask yourself a few things before you speak. Number one, should it be said? Should it be said? The very first thing you've got to learn is the discipline of filtering your conversations. You've got to learn to filter, should it be said? If it is negative, if it's demeaning, if it's life-taking, if it's off topic, it should not be said. Keep it to yourself. I promise you, there's a lot of trouble you're going to dodge if you can learn to filter your words before you say them. But the second question you need to ask yourself is this: should it be said now? Should it be said now? Because guess what? There may be some things you need to address, but not in that moment. There may be some things you need to communicate, but it's not the right season. And if you plant seeds in the wrong season, you're not going to get the harvest you think you're going to get. And too many times, we want to deal with everything all at once. You can't deal with everything all at once. And some of the things that you know you want to deal with needs to be dealt at a different time or a different stage. You've got to learn to address what's at hand. Should it be said now? So let me give you some rules to fighting. Some rules of fighting with words that are appropriate. And everybody needs to take notes on this. Maybe you haven't been taking notes. You need to write this down because this is going to be important. Number one, never call names. Never call names. Now you hear that and you go, well, duh, we're not supposed to call names. Like, oh, we know that. Names are bad. But how many times when you get in a fight with someone, what do you say? You're a jerk. You're such a nag. Oh, you're annoying me. You always do this, right? We go into it, right? You're lazy. You're not a good husband. You're not being a good wife. And how many times do we call names? Do you know what happens when you name call someone? You demean them. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in a relationship with someone that demeans me. So what I'm doing is causing a void between me and my spouse or whoever I'm in a relationship with. And I'm pushing them away. I'm not bringing them closer. I'm pushing them farther away. Name calling drives you apart, not brings you closer. And you've got to learn, remember, should it be said? No. Number two, never raise your voice. Never raise your voice. How many times you've been in a fight, right? And you be yelling, right? I can't believe you did this. You better change this. You're not doing this. You better, I can't believe it, blah, 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 blah. And then your spouse goes, I'm so sorry. I succumbed to your argument. I am indebted to your wisdom. How many times that ever happened? Absolutely zero. Come on, somebody. Ain't nobody ever just changed because somebody screamed at them, right? The louder you yell, the louder they yell back, right? It never resolves the issue. It always inflames the issue. It always makes it larger. You can never get anywhere if you're raising your voice. So make it the rule. Never raise your voice. Number three, never bring up the past. Never bring up the past. You never bring past issues into a present conversation. Because here's what we do. We go to that Rolodex of offenses, and we go, oh yeah, well 374 days ago you said this. Oh, and you remember 2 weeks ago when you did that. And you did this again, and you did that again, and we just start laying it out, right? Because what are we doing? We're building our case like a prosecuting attorney against our spouse, and we start throwing all the evidence on the table of why they're not this and why they're not that and why they could be better at this. And guess what that does? You know what that does? It tells your spouse, oh, you didn't really forgive me back then. And if you didn't forgive me back then, I know you ain't gonna forgive me now. So why even try? Why even try to be better? Because I know every step I take forward, you're gonna push me back 2 or 3 steps, because I will never be forgiven in your eyes. So we never bring past issues into present conversations. Number 4, never say never or always. How many people know this is our go-to words, right? You never. You always. Parents, right now, you're going, that's my teenager every single time I say no. You never let me. You always. But guess what? We act the same way in our marriages, right? We always drop the never and always. But you know what never and always does? It never addresses the problem at hand. It addresses the person's character. You know, when you tell them you never and you always, what you're saying is you're never good enough and you're always going to be a failure to me. So you're not actually addressing the issue. You're attacking them as a person. And when you attack them as a person, they're going to run away from you, not towards you. You've got to learn the art of the rules of fighting. And number 5, never threaten divorce. Never threaten divorce. We don't bring up the D word in our marriage. 16 years of marriage, me and my wife have never said that word to each other. 16 years. And listen to me, it's not that we're perfect. It's that we can trust each other. Because we've had some knockout, drag-out fights. We've had the worst storms in our marriage. We've had fights that were so horrible and so bad. But because we have never uttered those words to each other, we never lost trust that this marriage was not going to work. We always knew that we could make it through it. We always knew that we were in each other's corner. Even in the darkest moments, we knew there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel, because we never feared that the other person was going to leave. Because we trusted each other, and we didn't enter into a contract with each other. When we married each other, we entered into a covenant, and that's for life. Rules of fighting. All right. James says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Number 3, handle your anger righteously. You got to learn to handle your anger righteously. What do you mean, handle my anger righteously? Isn't it bad to get angry? Isn't it wrong to get frustrated? Isn't it bad to get annoyed? Now, watch what Ephesians says. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. Do not give the devil a foothold. Watch this. In your anger, do not sin. Did you know it's not a sin to be angry? It's only a sin when you respond wrong in your anger. That you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get ticked off. You're going to get angry at times. That's not a sin. What's a sin is, what do you do with that anger? How are you responding with that emotion? Where are you going when you feel the way you feel? And there's 4 signs you need to look at that's going to question whether or not you're fighting fair and handling your anger righteously or unrighteously. There's 4 signs that's going to show that you're handling your anger in the wrong way. The first is this, write this in your notes. You have criticism instead of a complaint. You have criticism instead of a complaint. What is the difference? A complaint deals with the situation. It deals with the problem. A criticism is global. It attacks your spouse's and your partner's personality and their character and who they are as a person. A good example is this. Watch a complaint. Here's an example of a complaint. I am frustrated that you scheduled that without checking with me to make sure my schedule can actually go to that event. That's a complaint. I'm frustrated that you scheduled that event and you didn't check with me to see if we could actually make it. But guess what a criticism sounds like? I'm frustrated that you scheduled that event and you didn't check with me because you never think about me. And the world always revolves around you, and it's never ever about what my needs are. And I feel like you're selfish all the time. Now immediately you know which one's right and which one's wrong. But let's be honest with ourselves. How many times do we go criticism instead of complaint? How many times? Why? Because we feel like unless we make it sting, our spouse won't remember. We feel like if we don't make this memorable, they'll do it again. Because we've thought that justification and justice happens at our hands, not in God's hands. We create ourselves as a mini deity and think that we are the judge and the jury, and justice happens at our hands. And so what do? We say, I'm gonna make you forget. I'm gonna make it so you never forget, and I'm gonna hit you where it hurts. So I'm gonna add a little criticism there. But that never brings health into your relationship. That never brings resolution to the actual problem at hand. What that does is causes someone to be on the fight. And it struggles. Number 2, the second sign that you're not fighting fair is contempt. Contempt. When you have contempt for someone, this is when you start becoming so aggravated and annoyed by them that they infuriate you. It's when they almost become disgusting to you. It's when they're so annoyed you don't even want to be around them. It's when you make these comments like, I don't even like you right now. How many people have felt that, right? You've been so mad. Maybe it's with a coworker. Maybe it's with a boss. Maybe it's been with your spouse. I don't even like you right now. And it's at this place where you roll your eyes. It's at this place where you're huffing and puffing. It's at this place where you're gonna demean them. It's at this place when you get all sarcastic, right? You're always right. You're always perfect. You never do anything wrong. No. And it's at this place where you get so infuriated and annoyed that you don't even want to even resolve anything. Now, this is a very dangerous place for most people in marriages. This is where divorce happens. It's because they get to this place where they don't even want to resolve it because they don't even like the person anymore. But not only does it cause an end to your marriage, it actually infects you. Research shows that couples that have contempt in their relationship, that this form of such aggravation actually are more prone to disease and illness than couples that respect each other. It physically makes you sick. It physically deteriorates your body. Have you ever hated your job or the people you work with so much that you physically felt sick? Have you ever been so aggravated that you never felt good because it physically destroys you? That's why Hebrews says that unforgiveness, bitterness is a poisonous root and leads to death. That bitterness, contempt is going to poison you and destroy you and kill you. It physically ails you. Number 3, defensiveness. And I'm gonna be transparent. This is where I sit. This is my struggle. I'm very defensive. I'm always right. I have the perfect answer. If my wife would just sit there and listen, I could fix every problem for her. And I'm never wrong. I am a great debater. Like, I should have been a politician because I can debate your socks off. And I'll start debating my wife and she'll go, oh no, don't you turn this around on me, right? She hits me with that. Because here's what it is. I know you're wrong and I'm right. At least that's what I think in my head. And here's what we do with defensiveness. We believe because our spouse cast the first stone that they're the reason everything's wrong. So here's what do we say to our spouse? Well, if you didn't do this, I wouldn't have reacted that way. It's only because you acted this way, that's why I did this. So I am justified for my behaviors and my actions because you started it. And we believe the domino effect justifies our actions. If you wouldn't have started the roll on the dominoes, then we wouldn't have been here. So it's all your fault. And you need to understand this very clearly. Just because someone sins towards you never justifies you to respond with sin. But some reason in our justification minds, we think sin cancels out sin. Sin doesn't cancel out sin, grace does. And unless you understand that, you will always come and fight with your spouse and never get anywhere and actually cause more damage than good. And then the fourth area that you understand you're fighting wrong with unrighteous anger is this: you stonewall. You know what stonewalling is? The silent treatment. I'm not even going to give you my time. You are not even worthy of being graced with the conversation with me or my presence. And until you admit 100% fault, we ain't talking. You text me, one word response, and maybe just the K. K, that's it. You don't even get an O. You call, I ain't answering, and then I'm gonna respond, what do you want? Text. Because until it's a poetic apology, we ain't talking. That's what we do, right? How you think you're gonna get anywhere when you don't even talk? What good do you think actually happens then? How would you feel if God responded to you that way? I'm ignoring you until you change. Don't even pray. You just getting a K. Stonewall. All right. I don't even know where I'm going. All right, final thoughts. Let me get you out of here. Let me get you some final thoughts on where we can go with this. Number one, don't react in emotion. Respond in the spirit. Don't react in the emotion. Respond in the spirit. Listen to me. Too many times we cause problems in our fights because we're fighting in an emotional state. Behavioral studies, behavioral psychologists have found that when you are in an emotional state, especially anger, your IQ drops by up to 30 points. You ever wonder why you say the dumbest things when you mad? Because you dumb. Like, scientifically speaking, you're dumb in that moment, right? And too many times we saying dumb things because we emotionally dumb. And if you don't understand that, you're gonna fight in an emotional state and dig yourself a hole that gets deeper and deeper with every word you speak. So sometimes you've gotta learn the art of calling a timeout. You gotta look at your spouse and say, I need a timeout. Because I know I'm gonna say things I regret. I'm gonna say things in the wrong heart. I don't mean it, but I'm emotional right now. And I need to pray so that we can fix this, not fight over this. I want us to communicate healthy. And if your spouse calls a timeout, the spouse on the other end needs to respect that. Because what your spouse is saying is, I care more about you than being right. I care more about you than winning this fight. And I wanna speak life, not death in our relationship. So we're gonna call a timeout. We're gonna pray, and then we're gonna come back together, and we're gonna communicate with a healthy voice in our marriage. Romans says it like this: don't overcome evil by evil. You will overcome evil with good. Isn't that exactly what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, right? You don't fight hate with hate, you fight it with love. You don't quench darkness with darkness, you quench it with light. You gotta be what you want. You gotta be the spouse you want your spouse to be. You know, Jesus made a statement. He said it's better to give than receive. And he says, what you give, you'll receive full over, right? He says, pressed down, spilling over into your lap. You're gonna receive in abundance what you give. That sounds so good, right? And for years, that's what pastors preach on money, right? That's a good offering talk, right? You give me your money, right? Give God your money. And he gonna spill it over in your lap, right? Bentleys, Rolexes, it's gonna be flowing. Guess what? Go read that Bible. He ain't talking about money. He's talking about relationships. He says what you give in a relationship, you'll get back spilling over, overflowing in your laps. What? If you don't like what you're getting, maybe you need to check what you're giving. If you start stonewalling your spouse, they gonna stonewall you. If you're gonna criticize your spouse, they're gonna criticize you. If you start showing contempt in your relationship, that's the way they're gonna be towards you. If you're always defensive, they're always gonna be defensive. But when you sow love and mercy and health and communication, guess what? Over time, you will start receiving that back. If you don't like what you're getting, check what you're giving. Secondly, you got to learn to confront to heal, never to win. You confront because you want healing, not because you want to be right. You confront because you realize this is my partner for life. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this right and to make this healthy. 1 Peter says, finally, all of you live in harmony with one another. Be sympathetic, love as brothers, be compassionate, and what? Humble. Don't repay evil with evil or insult with insult, but with blessing. Because of this, you are called so that you may inherit a blessing. Listen to me, when emotions are gone, you need to learn to communicate to your spouse, what can I do to be a blessing to you? What blesses you? What gives you life? How can I be the support you need? And you need to listen and receive it and then be it. Speak it. And lastly, forgive and apologize. Life is too short to be miserable. Life is too short to let pride keep a grudge in your heart and mind. You need to forgive your spouse and you need to apologize where you're wrong, because I promise you it takes two to tango. You ain't perfect. And you need to learn this. We forgive much because we've been forgiven much. I'm gonna shock you for a second. I ain't perfect. Whoa. Did he say that? Ask my wife. I need forgiveness all the time. You need forgiveness all the time. And I receive forgiveness from my wife all the time, but I receive forgiveness from my God all the time. And guess what? When I go to God for forgiveness, he doesn't say, okay, I'll forgive you, Mike, but you got to do X, Y, Z. I'll forgive you if you read all this scripture. I'll forgive you if you admit how groveling fool you are. I'll forgive you if you serve X amount of times at church. I'll forgive you if you jump through my hoops. God don't do that, right? God says a free gift. How many times that's what we do in our relationships, right? I'll forgive you if you do this. I'll forgive you only if you change that. I'll forgive you if you jump through my hoops. We're not called to be imitators of this world. We're called to be imitators of heaven. And our grace has to align with heaven, not this world. Because this world will never let you forget a mistake you made. You don't believe me? Look at what politicians pull up about kids that are 18 years old that are now 40 or 50. They say, if they acted this way when they're 18, they're going to be that when they're in their 50. The world will never forget your mistakes, but your God does. And we're going to forgive that way, amen? I want to thank you guys for watching online. If you were blessed, man, if you want to financially contribute, you can go to bloomhere.org/give. If you'd like to follow us online, follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Church Bloom. We are blessed, and if you're ever in the Branson area, we'd love to have you at one of our services, and you can find any information at bloomhere.org. Love you guys, and I pray God's peace.